Lonely rancher bought a girl sent to a brothel by her mother, and just talked with her and married. The autumn wind cut through Copper Creek like a blade, carrying with it the scent of dying leaves and the promise of an early winter. Samuel Mitchell pulled his worn leather coat tighter as he guided his horse down the town's only main street, the familiar creak of saddle leather mixing with the distant sound of hammers from the blacksmith's shop. At 42, Sam had the weathered look of a man who'd spent more years under the Wyoming sun than most. His brown hair now streaked with silver, his hands calloused from decades of ranch work. He'd come to town for supplies, nothing more. The same routine he'd followed every month for the past 3 years since Martha had passed. Load up on flour, coffee, and whatever else he needed to survive another month of solitude on his ranch 15 miles out of town. The loneliness had become his constant companion, as familiar as the morning coffee he drank in silence every dawn. The general store was busy for a Tuesday afternoon. Sam nodded to a few familiar faces as he gathered his supplies, exchanging brief pleasantries about the weather and cattle prices. He was loading his purchases into his saddlebags when he overheard the conversation that would change everything. "Poor thing can't be more than 19, Mrs. Henderson was saying to the shopkeeper, her voice pitched low but not low enough. "Rosa Martinez brought her in on yesterday's stage. Says she can't afford to keep her anymore, what with her husband dying and all those debts." Sam's hands stilled on his saddlebags. He'd known Rosa Martinez years ago, before she'd moved to Denver after her husband struck it rich in the silver mines. That had been before the mines played out, apparently. "Straight to Madame Violet's place," the shopkeeper replied, shaking his head. Girl looked scared as a trapped rabbit. Rosa didn't even stay the night. Took the next stage back to Denver like the devil himself was chasing her. Sam felt something cold settle in his stomach. Madame Violet ran the only brothel in Copper Creek, a necessity in a town filled with lonely miners and cowboys, but not the kind of place any decent woman would choose to be. The fact that a mother had brought her own daughter there spoke of desperation that Sam understood all too well. He finished loading his supplies in silence, his mind churning. It wasn't his business, he told himself. He had his own problems, his own grief to manage. The ranch demanded all his attention, and he'd learned to keep his head down and his concerns to himself. But as he mounted his horse and began the ride out of town, Sam couldn't shake the image of a frightened 19-year-old girl, abandoned by her own mother to a fate that would destroy whatever innocence she had left. The wind seemed colder now, cutting through his coat like it was made of paper. He made it 5 miles before he turned his horse around. Madame Violet's establishment sat at the edge of town, a 2-story building painted in faded red with white trim that had seen better days. Sam had never set foot inside, though he'd ridden past it countless times over the years. Now as he tied his horse to the hitching post, he felt every eye in the vicinity watching him. The interior was exactly what he'd expected. Red velvet curtains, dim lighting, and the heavy scent of perfume and whiskey. A woman in her 50s with elaborate blonde curls and a dress that had been fashionable 20 years ago approached him with a practiced smile. "Well, well," Madame Violet said, her voice honeyed with false warmth. "Samuel Mitchell, I was wondering when you'd finally pay us a visit. Been a long time since Martha passed, hasn't it?" Sam removed his hat, his jaw tight. "I'm not here for what you think, Violet. I heard about the girl Rosa Martinez brought in yesterday. I want to see her." Violet's smile faltered slightly, replaced by shrewd calculation. "Elena's a sweet thing, brand new to the business, but she's expensive, Sam. Premium merchandise, if you understand my meaning." "I understand perfectly." Sam reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather pouch heavy with gold coins, money he'd been saving for months to buy new breeding stock. "How much?" Violet's eyes widened at the sight of the gold. "For one night?" "Sam, honey, that's more than most men spend in a year here." "Not for one night." Sam met her gaze steadily. "I want to buy her contract. All of it. Whatever Rosa owed you, whatever you've invested, I'll pay it." The madame's painted eyebrows shot up. "Buy her contract? Sam, what in the hell are you planning to do with a girl like that? She's not exactly ranch wife material." "That's my business." Sam poured the contents of the pouch onto the nearest table. The gold coins caught the lamplight, gleaming like small suns. "Is this enough?" Violet stared at the money, her tongue darting across her lips. "It's more than enough. But Sam, think about what you're doing. You can't just buy a girl like she's a piece of livestock." "I'm not buying her," Sam said quietly. "I'm buying her freedom." "There's a difference," For a long moment Violet studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded slowly. Room 3, upstairs. But Sam? Be gentle with her. She's been through enough. Sam climbed the narrow stairs, his boots echoing in the hallway. He found room 3 and knocked softly. When no answer came, he knocked again, a little louder. Come in, came a voice so soft he almost missed it. Sam opened the door and stepped into the small room. It was spartanly furnished, a bed, a washstand, a single chair by the window, and sitting on the edge of the bed, dressed in a simple blue dress that had seen better days, was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She had dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, and brown eyes that held a mixture of fear and resignation. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she didn't look up when he entered. I'm Elena, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Madame Violet said you wanted to see me. Sam stood frozen in the doorway, his hat in his hands. Up close, she looked even younger than 19, and the fear in her eyes made his chest tight. Elena, he said gently, my name is Samuel Mitchell. Sam, and I'm here to take you away from this place. Finally, she looked up at him, confusion replacing the resignation in her eyes. I don't understand. Sam stepped into the room but kept his distance, not wanting to frighten her further. I bought your contract from Madame Violet. You don't have to stay here. You don't have to do this. Elena's eyes widened, and for a moment, hope flickered across her face before being quickly suppressed. What do you want from me? Nothing, Sam said simply. I want nothing from you except the chance to help you start over somewhere else, somewhere safe. Tears began to fall down Elena's cheeks and she covered her face with her hands. I don't understand. Men don't do things like that. Not for girls like me. Sam felt his heart break a little. Some men do. And you're not a girl like you. You're a human being who deserves better than this. He pulled the chair away from the window and sat down, maintaining a respectful distance. Elena, I know we don't know each other, but I want you to know that you're safe now. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Elena looked up at him through her tears, studying his face as if trying to determine whether he was telling the truth. Why would you do this for a stranger? Sam was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Martha, about the loneliness that had consumed him, about the emptiness that had become his constant companion, because everyone deserves a chance at happiness, and because sometimes helping someone else is the only way to help yourself. The wind rattled the window, and somewhere in the distance a train whistle echoed across the prairie. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and for the first time since he'd entered the room, Sam saw something other than fear in her expression. What happens now? She asked. Now, Sam said, standing up and extending his hand to her. We get you out of here, and then we figure out the rest as we go. Elena stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. The ride to Sam's ranch stretched through the late afternoon, the Wyoming landscape rolling out before them in waves of golden prairie grass and distant mountains. Elena rode behind Sam on his horse, her arms wrapped tentatively around his waist, her body rigid with uncertainty. She had spoken little since leaving Madame Violet's, answering his gentle questions with single words or simple nods. Sam could feel her tension, the way she held herself apart even while sharing the same saddle. He kept his voice low and steady as he pointed out landmarks along the way. The creek where he watered his cattle, the stand of cottonwoods where he'd built a small shelter for harsh weather, the ridge where you could see 3 different mountain ranges on a clear day. It's beautiful, Elena said softly, the first complete sentence she'd offered since they'd left town. Her voice carried a note of wonder that made Sam's chest tighten. It is, he agreed, especially in the morning, when the sun first comes up over those peaks. The whole world turns gold for about 10 minutes. As they crested a small hill, Sam's ranch spread out before them. It wasn't much to look at. A modest 2-story house with a wraparound porch, a barn that needed fresh paint, corrals that held about 50 head of cattle, and a chicken coop that Martha had insisted on building their second year there. But it was home, and it was honest work. Elena's grip on his waist tightened slightly. It's yours, mine and the bank's, Sam said with a wry smile. But we're working on changing that ratio. He helped her down from the horse, his hands careful and respectful. Elena stood looking at the house, her expression unreadable. The afternoon light caught the highlights in her dark hair, and Sam found himself wondering what she was thinking. "Elena," he said gently, "I want you to understand something. This isn't a transaction. You don't owe me anything. I have a spare room upstairs, and you're welcome to stay as long as you need to figure out what you want to do next." She turned to face him, her brown eyes searching his face. "I don't understand why you're being kind to me." "Because kindness shouldn't be something you have to earn," Sam replied. "It should be something you can expect." Elena's eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them away quickly. "I don't know how to be around people anymore. Good people, I mean. I don't know how to act or what to say." Sam felt a familiar ache in his chest, the same feeling he'd had when trying to comfort Martha during her final illness, wanting desperately to take away pain but feeling helpless to do so. "You don't have to act any particular way. You just have to be yourself." "I'm not sure I remember who that is anymore," Elena said quietly. Sam nodded, understanding more than she knew. "Maybe we can figure it out together. I've been alone out here for 3 years, and I'm not sure I remember who I used to be either." He led her toward the house, carrying her small bag, the only possession she'd brought from her mother's house in Denver. The porch creaked under their feet, a familiar sound that had once welcomed him home every evening when Martha was alive. The interior of the house was clean but sparse, furnished with practical pieces that showed their age. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace that Sam had built himself. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms, the master bedroom he'd shared with Martha, a smaller room that had been intended for children who never came, and a third room they'd used for storage. "This was going to be Martha's sewing room," Sam said, opening the door to the smallest bedroom. He'd spent the morning hastily clearing out boxes and setting up a bed with fresh linens. "It's not much, but it's private, and it locks from the inside." Elena stepped into the room, running her fingers along the quilt on the bed. "It's perfect. Thank you." Sam lingered in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. "I usually eat supper around 6. You're welcome to join me, but don't feel obligated. I understand if you need time to yourself." "I'd like that," Elena said, turning to face him. "To eat with you, I mean. If that's all right." "Of course it's all right." Sam smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "I'll be downstairs when you're ready." He left her alone to settle in, returning to the kitchen to begin preparing supper. It felt strange cooking for 2 people again, measuring out portions for someone other than himself. As he worked, he could hear Elena moving around upstairs, the soft sound of her footsteps a reminder that he was no longer alone in the house. When she came downstairs an hour later, she had changed from her blue dress into a simple brown skirt and white blouse that she'd pulled from her bag. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she looked younger somehow, less guarded. "Something smells wonderful," she said, hovering at the edge of the kitchen as if unsure whether she was allowed to enter. "Just beef stew and cornbread," Sam said, stirring the pot on the stove. "Nothing fancy. Martha always said I was a practical cook, not a creative one." "Martha was your wife?" Sam nodded, feeling the familiar pang of grief that always came with speaking her name. "She died 3 years ago. Consumption. We were married for 15 years. Elena was quiet for a moment, then stepped closer to the stove. "I'm sorry. That must have been very hard." It was. Sam ladled stew into 2 bowls, then gestured toward the small dining table. "But talking about her helps sometimes. Keeps her memory alive." They sat across from each other at the table, and for the first few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. Elena had the refined manners of someone who'd been raised properly, Sam noticed. Whatever circumstances had led her to Madame Violets, she hadn't grown up in poverty. "My mother taught me to cook," Elena said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. "Before everything fell apart. Before Papa died and the debts came due." "What happened?" Sam asked gently. Elena set down her spoon, her expression distant. "Papa had a silver mine outside Denver. For 2 years it produced more ore than any other mine in the territory. We lived in a big house, had servants, wore the finest clothes. Mama said we were the luckiest family in Colorado." She paused, taking a sip of water. Then the vein played out. Just like that, nothing but worthless rock. Papa had borrowed money against future production, invested everything in equipment and more claims. When the mine failed, we lost everything. "I'm sorry," Sam said quietly. "Papa couldn't handle it," Elena continued, her voice growing softer. "He started drinking, gambling, trying to find another strike. He died in a mining accident 6 months later, but everyone knew it wasn't really an accident. He walked into that unstable tunnel on purpose. Sam felt his chest tighten. And your mother? Mama tried to hold things together, but the debts were too much. She sold everything we had left, but it wasn't enough. The bank was going to foreclose on the house and she had nowhere to go. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she picked up her spoon again. She said she had a friend in Copper Creek who could help me find work. She told me I'd be helping in a general store or maybe working as a seamstress. But you knew the truth, Sam said. Elena nodded, tears threatening again. I knew. But I also knew that if I didn't go, Mama would have nothing. At least this way she could keep the house a little longer. Maybe find another solution. Sam reached across the table and covered her hand with his. That was very brave of you. It was very foolish of me, Elena said, but she didn't pull her hand away. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was strong enough. But when I got to that place, when I saw what was expected of me, she shuddered. I've never been so scared in my life. You don't have to be scared anymore, Sam said firmly. I meant what I said earlier. You're safe here, for as long as you want to stay. Elena looked up at him, studying his face in the lamplight. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't even know me. Sam was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. Because I know what it's like to lose everything that matters to you. And because I know what it's like to feel completely alone in the world. Maybe helping you is helping myself too. How? This house has been empty for 3 years, Sam said, glancing around the kitchen. Oh, I've been living in it, but it hasn't been a home. It's been more like a place to sleep between workdays. Having someone to talk to, someone to cook for. It reminds me what it feels like to be human again. Elena's eyes softened. I don't know what the future holds, Sam. I don't know who I am anymore or what I want to do with my life. That's all right, Sam said. We don't have to figure it all out tonight. We can take it one day at a time. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and sending a chill through the house. Sam got up to add more wood to the fire, and Elena helped him clear the supper dishes. They worked together in comfortable silence, and for the first time in months, Sam felt something other than loneliness filling the spaces between them. Sam, Elena said as they finished cleaning up. Yes? Thank you. For everything. For seeing me as more than what that place would have made me. Sam turned to face her, moved by the sincerity in her voice. Elena, that place could never have defined who you are. It might have hurt you, but it couldn't have changed the person you really are inside. Elena smiled then, the first real smile he'd seen from her, and Sam felt his heart skip a beat. In that moment, he realized that bringing Elena home hadn't just been about saving her. It had been about saving himself too. The first weeks of Elena's stay at the ranch passed in a careful dance of mutual respect and growing familiarity. Sam maintained his daily routine, rising before dawn to tend the cattle, mending fences, preparing for the harsh winter that would arrive within the month. Elena found her own rhythm, taking over the household tasks that Sam had been managing alone for 3 years. She proved to be an excellent cook, transforming Sam's simple meals into something approaching Martha's old recipes. The house began to smell like home again, fresh bread in the morning, simmering stews in the evening, and the faint scent of the lavender soap Elena had found in the general store during their weekly trips to town. You don't have to do all this, Sam said one evening, returning from the barn to find Elena hanging fresh curtains in the kitchen windows. I don't expect you to be my housekeeper. Elena looked down from the chair she was standing on, her cheeks flushed from the effort. I know you don't expect it, but I need to feel useful, Sam. I need to contribute somehow. Sam steadied the chair as she climbed down, his hands briefly touching her waist. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, and he stepped back quickly. You contribute just by being here, by being yourself. That doesn't feel like enough, Elena said, smoothing her skirt. You saved my life. You gave me a home when I had nowhere else to go. The least I can do is make sure you have decent meals and clean clothes. Sam wanted to tell her that she didn't owe him anything, that her presence alone had brought more life to the house than he'd felt in 3 years. But he could see the need in her eyes, the need to feel valuable, to have purpose. He understood that need better than most. Well, he said finally, I have to admit the house hasn't looked this good since Martha was alive, and I can't remember the last time I had biscuits that didn't taste like saddle leather. Elena laughed, the sound filling the kitchen with warmth. Mama always said the secret to good biscuits was patience and cold butter. Most people rush the process. What else did your mother teach you? Sam asked, settling into his chair at the kitchen table. Elena's expression grew thoughtful. She taught me to read Latin and French. She said a lady should be educated even if she never had the chance to use it. She taught me to play piano, though we had to sell ours when times got hard. And she taught me that a woman's character is more important than her beauty, though I'm not sure she remembered that lesson when Elena's voice trailed off. When she brought you to Copper Creek, Sam finished gently. Elena nodded, her eyes distant. I think she was so desperate, so afraid that she convinced herself she was doing the right thing. People do terrible things when they're scared. Have you thought about writing to her? Sam asked. Letting her know you're safe? Elena was quiet for a long moment, folding and refolding a kitchen towel. I've thought about it, but I don't know what I'd say. And I'm not sure I want to know if she's relieved that I'm gone. Sam felt a surge of anger toward Rosa Martinez, but he kept it out of his voice. You might be surprised. A mother's love doesn't disappear just because she makes a terrible mistake. Maybe, Elena said, but her tone suggested she wasn't convinced. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of riders approaching the house. Sam frowned, moving to the window. 3 men on horseback were dismounting near the porch, and Sam recognized them immediately. Jake Morrison, the sheriff's deputy, and 2 of his drinking companions from town. Stay inside, Sam told Elena, reaching for his rifle. And stay away from the windows. Elena's face went pale. What's wrong? I don't know yet, Sam said, checking his weapon. But Jake Morrison doesn't ride out here for social calls. Sam stepped onto the porch, his rifle held casually but ready. Jake, what brings you all the way out here? Jake Morrison was a man in his 30s with a permanent sneer and a reputation for causing trouble. He'd been one of Madame Violet's regular customers, and Sam had a suspicion he knew exactly why they'd come. Heard you had some company, Sam, Jake said, his eyes scanning the house. Thought we'd come see how you're settling in with your new arrangement. My housekeeping arrangements are none of your business, Sam said evenly. Jake laughed, a sound without humor. Come on, Sam. We all know what you bought from Violet. Question is, you getting your money's worth? Sam's finger tightened on the rifle. I suggest you get back on your horses and ride away, Jake. Before this conversation goes somewhere we'll all regret. Now why would we do that? Jake asked, dismounting and walking closer to the porch. We just want to meet your new friend. Maybe see if she's interested in some additional company. Sam raised the rifle, pointing it directly at Jake's chest. Take another step and we'll find out how interested you are in meeting your maker. Jake stopped, his hands raised in mock surrender. Easy there, Sam. No need to get hostile. We're just neighbors being neighborly. Neighbors who ride armed onto my property and make threats about my houseguest, Sam said. That's not neighborly, Jake. That's trespassing with intent to harm. Intent to harm? Jake's companion, a thin man named Pete, spoke up. All we want is a friendly conversation. With a woman who's under my protection, Sam said. And that conversation isn't going to happen. Jake's expression darkened. You can't keep her locked up out here forever, Sam. Eventually she's going to come to town. And when she does, we'll be waiting. If you or anyone else lays a hand on Elena, I'll kill you, Sam said, his voice deadly quiet. That's not a threat, Jake. That's a promise. For a moment, the 2 men stared at each other, the tension thick as summer lightning. Then Jake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Well, he said. Elena, is it? Pretty name for a pretty girl. We'll be sure to remember that. Sam took a step forward, his rifle still trained on Jake. Get off my land. Now. Jake and his companions backed toward their horses, but Jake called out one more time. You can't watch her every minute of every day, Sam. And winter's coming. Long, cold winter. Lot of things can happen in winter. They rode away, but Sam remained on the porch until they were out of sight. When he finally went back inside, he found Elena sitting at the kitchen table, her face white with fear. They know my name, she whispered. They know you're here, Sam said, setting the rifle aside and sitting across from her. But they don't know anything else about you. They'll come back, Elena said, her voice shaking. Men like that always come back. Sam reached across the table and took her hands in his. Elena, look at me. She raised her eyes to meet his, and Sam saw the old fear returning, the same terror he'd seen in Madame Violet's brothel. I won't let them hurt you, he said firmly. I promise you that. But I need you to promise me something too. What? Promise me you won't let them scare you into leaving. This is your home now for as long as you want it to be. Don't let Jake Morrison or anyone else drive you away from the first place you felt safe. Elena stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I promise, but Sam, I don't want to bring trouble into your life. Maybe it would be better if I... No, Sam said firmly. You're not bringing trouble into my life. You're bringing life into my life. There's a difference. That night, Sam sat on the porch long after Elena had gone to bed, his rifle across his knees, and his eyes scanning the darkness. The wind carried the scent of approaching snow, and he knew that winter would bring its own challenges. But he also knew that he'd meant every word he'd said to Jake Morrison. He would protect Elena no matter what it cost him. Somewhere over the past few weeks, she'd become more than just a woman he'd saved from a terrible fate. She'd become the reason he looked forward to coming home each evening, the reason he smiled when he heard her humming while she worked, the reason he felt alive again for the first time in 3 years. Inside the house, a lamp flickered in Elena's window, and Sam found himself wondering if she was thinking about him the way he was thinking about her. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. He'd loved Martha with the steady, comfortable love of a young man who'd known exactly what he wanted from life. But what he felt for Elena was different, more complex, more intense, shot through with a protective fierce that surprised him with its strength. As the night deepened and the first snow began to fall, Sam made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd start teaching Elena to shoot. Jake Morrison had made his intentions clear, and Sam wouldn't be caught unprepared. Elena deserved to feel safe in her own home, and Sam would make sure she did, whatever it took. Winter arrived early that year, blanketing the ranch in 2 feet of snow by the first week of November. The isolation that had once felt like a burden to Sam now felt like a blessing, creating a world where only he and Elena existed, their daily routines intertwining like threads in a tapestry. Elena had proven to be a quick learner with the rifle, her hand steady and her aim true. Sam had set up targets behind the barn, and each morning after the chores were done, they would practice together. She never complained about the cold or the weight of the weapon, understanding instinctively that her safety might depend on her skill. You're getting better, Sam said one morning, watching as Elena's shot splintered the center of a wooden target. Martha never could hit the broadside of a barn. Elena lowered the rifle, her cheeks flushed from the cold. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who could use a gun. You're stronger than you think, Sam said, stepping closer to adjust her stance. You always have been. The proximity made Elena's breath catch. Over the past months, she'd noticed how Sam's presence affected her, the way her pulse quickened when he entered a room, the way she found herself looking for excuses to be near him. She'd told herself it was gratitude, or the simple comfort of human companionship after so much fear and loneliness, but she was beginning to understand that what she felt for Sam Mitchell ran much deeper than gratitude. Sam, she said softly, not moving away when he remained close. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come to town that day? If you hadn't heard Mrs. Henderson talking about me? Sam's eyes searched her face, seeing something there that made his heart race. Every day, he said honestly. And every day I'm grateful that I did hear her, that I found you. Elena set the rifle aside, her hands trembling slightly. I think about it too. About how different my life would have been, how broken I would have become. You would have survived, Sam said gently. You're a survivor, Elena. That's one of the things I admire most about you. But I wouldn't have been the same person, Elena said, stepping closer to him. I wouldn't have learned what it feels like to be treated with kindness, to be valued for who I am instead of what I can provide. The snow continued to fall around them, creating a curtain of white that made their conversation feel intimate and private. Sam reached out, his gloved hand touching Elena's cheek gently. Elena, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I need to tell you something. What? I didn't save you, Sam said, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. You saved me. This house, this ranch, my life. It was all empty without you. You brought everything back to life. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. I love you, Sam, she whispered, the words coming out in a rush. I've been trying not to feel it, telling myself it was just gratitude or loneliness, but I can't pretend anymore. I love you. Sam's heart stopped, then began beating double time. Elena, are you sure? I'm 15 years older than you. I'm set in my ways, rough around the edges. You could have any man you wanted. I want you, Elena said firmly, placing her hands on his chest. I want this life, this ranch, this future we could build together. I want to wake up every morning knowing that I'm home, really home, with a man who sees me as more than just a possession or a convenience. Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. I love you too, he said, his voice muffled against her hair. I've loved you since that first night when you smiled at me in the kitchen. I just didn't know if you could ever feel the same way about an old rancher like me. Elena pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. You're not old, Sam Mitchell, you're perfect, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Sam cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Marry me, Elena. Be my wife, not because you owe me anything, but because you want to build a life with me. Yes, Elena said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. Yes, I'll marry you. Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, a promise of the love they would build together. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, their faces flushed with more than just the cold. We should go inside, Sam said, but he made no move to release her. We should, Elena agreed, but she didn't step away either. They stood in the falling snow, holding each other, both understanding that this moment marked the beginning of something beautiful and lasting. The fear and loneliness that had brought them together was transforming into something stronger, a love built on mutual respect, shared values, and the deep recognition of two souls who had found their match. The wedding took place 3 weeks later in the small church in Copper Creek. Pastor Williams performed the ceremony, with Mrs. Henderson and her husband serving as witnesses. Elena wore a simple blue dress that she'd sewn herself, and Sam wore his best suit, the one he'd married Martha in all those years ago. As they exchanged vows, Sam thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. He'd lost Martha to consumption, had spent 3 years grieving and alone. But perhaps that grief had been necessary to prepare him for this different kind of love, one that was deeper and more complex, forged in the crucible of shared hardship and mutual salvation. Elena's voice was clear and strong as she promised to love and honor him, to be his partner in all things. When Sam slipped the simple gold band onto her finger, he felt the last of his loneliness fall away. Jake Morrison was notably absent from the ceremony, but Sam had heard through the grapevine that the deputy had been caught cheating at cards and had left town in disgrace. The threat that had loomed over their early days together had dissipated like morning mist. After the ceremony, they returned to the ranch, their ranch now, and celebrated with a simple dinner that Elena had prepared. As the evening wore on, they sat together on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the snow fall and talking about their plans for the future. I want to expand the herd, Sam said, his arm around Elena's shoulders. Maybe add some horses. There's good money in breeding stock. And I want to start a garden in the spring, Elena said, leaning into his warmth. A big one with vegetables and herbs and flowers. I want to can preserves and make this place feel like a real home. It already feels like a real home, Sam said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Because you're in it. Elena turned in his arms, her face glowing with happiness. I wrote to my mother yesterday, she said quietly. I told her about you, about the wedding, about how happy I am. I forgave her, Sam. I realized that holding on to that anger was only hurting me. What did you say? I told her that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things. That if she hadn't brought me to Copper Creek, I never would have met you. I never would have found my real home. Sam felt his throat tighten with emotion. Do you think she'll write back? I hope so, Elena said. I'd like her to know that her sacrifice wasn't in vain, that I'm not just surviving, but thriving. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the snow create a pristine world around them. The ranch that had once felt like a prison of loneliness now felt like a sanctuary of love. Sam? Elena said softly. Yes? Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me. Not just as a victim or a problem to be solved, but as a person worth loving. Sam tightened his arms around her, his heart full to bursting. Thank you for letting me love you. For choosing to build a life with me instead of just surviving. As the night deepened and the snow continued to fall, Sam and Elena Mitchell sat together on their porch, two souls who had found their way home to each other. The future stretched out before them, filled with challenges and joys, hardships and triumphs. But they would face it all together, their love a beacon of light in whatever darkness might come. The lonely rancher and the frightened girl were gone, replaced by a husband and wife who had found in each other not just love, but redemption. In saving Elena, Sam had saved himself. In choosing to trust Sam, Elena had chosen to trust in the possibility of happiness. And in the quiet of the Wyoming winter, surrounded by the peace of fresh snow and the warmth of true love, they began to write the story of their life together. A story that would be told for generations to come, a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance at happiness. The wind whispered through the snow-laden pines, carrying with it the promise of spring and new beginnings. Sam and Elena Mitchell were home at last, in each other's arms and in the life they had chosen to build together on the wide, beautiful plain of the American West. What did you think of Sam and Elena's incredible love story? This tale of compassion, courage, and second chances in the rugged American West shows us that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most beautiful destinies. Their journey from strangers to soulmates reminds us that true love isn't just about passion. It's about seeing and valuing each other for who we truly are. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what moment resonated most with you. Was it Sam's brave decision to save Elena, their first conversation in that small room, or perhaps their wedding in the snow? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our heartwarming stories from America's frontier days. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue bringing you these tales of love, hope, and human connection. Thank you for being part of our storytelling community.